Hi, everyone. Welcome to Making It on Monday. And this week we've got a special guest, Kellie. Welcome, Kellie.
Hello.
Kellie is a patient of the Acupuncture Pregnancy Clinic, but she's also been on a pretty extraordinary journey around endometriosis and conceiving. And Kellie's actually currently right at the end of a pregnancy. How many weeks are you now, Kellie?
I'm actually 37 weeks today.
Wow. Okay, that's pretty exciting.
Yeah.
So today I reached out to Kellie because she's not only kind of gone through quite a big transformation in terms of her health, wellness, endometriosis, fertility, but then it's also sort of brought on a field for her some professional development, which we'll talk about a little bit later. And talk about Cozy, which is a heat pack. We'll move on to that in a little bit later. But I thought it'd be great today for people out there going through a fertility journey, particularly if you have things like endometriosis, to really hear your story because you had some struggles, and right now you have triumphed, but there's been some struggles, and just to kind of hear a bit about your journey and what you went through, and what it took to kind of get you where you are today. So yeah, I'd just love you to start off with just if you what you feel comfortable sharing in terms of your personal journey with infertility and endometriosis, and maybe sharing some of the challenges that you faced.
Yeah, not a problem. So my very first period when I was 12 was really bad, and I was throwing up from the pain. My mum had to call a doctor to come out and give me an injection. And so I just kind of always knew periods to be painful, but I didn't get diagnosed until I think I was around 24 because I had a scan and they could see endometriomas on my scan, which are like big chocolate cysts that bleed. And they told me, I think, when they first found that I might have trouble having kids one day, but at 24, it just wasn't on my radar at all. I didn't even know if I wanted kids.
You're just kind of like,
yeah. Absolutely. So I didn't even meet my right person until later in life. So it's not that simple to just say, okay, I'll have kids then. And so I just kind of left everything. They put me on the pill for a really long time to manage my symptoms. And I think I was in my early 30s when I had my first laparoscopy. I've only had one, sorry. But they found I had stage 4 endometriosis, which had spread to all my organs, and everything was stuck together and bleeding, and it was just a big mess in there. So they did clean it up, but it recurred a year later, unfortunately. And I think it was around that time that I had my first pregnancy, which wasn't planned. It was an accident. And then we lost that pregnancy, which was a big shock because I had never heard of someone I knew having a miscarriage before. And I definitely didn't realize it would be the start of this 4-year journey of trying to have a child. We ended up having 5 miscarriages before our current pregnancy, which was really tough.
Wow. And so that first initial pregnancy made you kind of, I guess, think, literally conceptualize, having a baby, and then you thought, I'm ready for this. That was kind of what sort of spurred it on in terms of your fertility, like wanting to kind of go on down that path and become a
From
parent.
the moment you see those 2 lines, you just picture your life with that child. So it is really shocking to have it taken away.
Yeah, for sure. I can imagine. That'd be huge. Yeah. And like you said, I think a lot of what your personal journey really rings true to so many women, myself included, who, you actually meet your partner later in life. And it's not like, you might be given these really kind of logical fertility options when you're younger, in your 20s, like, you have a low egg reserve, or you have PCOS, endometriosis, you've got things that are going to complicate things. But actually, sometimes it's not that relevant, because it's like, well, what am I going to do with that information unless, you're ready to, be incredibly brave and do that all on your own, which most 20-year-olds I know don't have the resources, emotionally, physically, financially, to do that.
I wish I could have frozen my eggs, but I could not have afforded it until I was older, and it was already a problem.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. Yeah, all these sort of things require a lot, you know, emotionally, a lot, financially, and physically from you. So while it's sometimes good to find these things out earlier because you know what your options are, but sometimes they're kind of limited, like socially and for all those reasons.
It's an all-consuming journey once you embark on a fertility journey. It has taken over my life for 4 years, that's for sure.
Yeah. And how are you feeling now being on that like other side of it, I guess, where you're about to have a baby? Like how are you kind of letting go some of that hard stuff you've been through?
Honestly, surprisingly for me, no. You still have so much fear. And I thought that it would get easier once I was past the first 3 months, but I still have panic attacks all the time that something will go wrong. I'm still really afraid of something going wrong during the delivery. I have a really bad like jinx mentality, like I've come so far and things could still go wrong. So it really does give you like PTSD, I think, going through a fertility journey like this.
Yeah, and having like a narrative where you've had like a lot of letdown and disappointment and heartbreak, it's really hard then to kind of go, no, this is a new story and this isn't the same as other stories, and I'm going to let go of that old story and feel confident and comfortable. But hopefully as time goes by, you know, and you get that baby in your arms, at least, you know, the confidence and comfort also start to kind of take over, and hopefully that old narrative can really slip away for you. You can heal.
Hopefully, I'm sure it will be.
Yeah. So I'd love to hear about a little bit about like many individuals are dealing with fertility issues and they kind of explore lots of different treatment options. I'd love to find out a little bit about how you incorporated, like what kind of things you incorporated and what things you found helpful during your fertility journey.
Yeah, definitely coming to you guys and getting acupuncture was a big one for me. I had a friend, and I think this might have been the only friend I knew of who'd had a miscarriage. I just didn't know other people had, but I knew that she had. And she told me about you guys because she actually saw you after her miscarriage, and then she had a baby girl. So I think going to acupuncture was probably one of the better things that I did. I also, with this pregnancy, was under the care of Dr. Mateus, who is a reproductive endocrinologist. I'm not sure if you've heard of him, but he does the immune protocol. So I've been under the immune protocol for this pregnancy as well, which I don't know if it's what made a difference or not, but that has been part of my journey this time as well.
Yeah. And I think sometimes we see this a lot in the clinic that you can be working with one specialist who can be fantastic, like they're all fantastic, but it's finding the right one who's got the right kind of bag of tricks or the right kind of tools or can make the right sort of changes or tweaks and different for your case. And and that's different for everyone.
I think the hard thing is finding people who want to try things, because I found a lot of I've met with lots of specialists, and a lot of them, they kind of just say, you know, statistically it's just likely that a pregnancy won't work out. So they don't necessarily think that there's things you can do to change or shape the outcome. I couldn't tell you how many times I've just been told that I'm unlucky. And it's really frustrating when to you it doesn't feel like that. And so I think the difference for me seeing you guys and seeing him was that the conversation was more around what can we do to try and influence the outcome next time, rather than just saying, you know what, statistically these things happen, because that is really disheartening to hear.
Yeah. And it's also kind of like putting you in almost a victim mentality where you don't really have ability to change anything, and it's not very an empowering place to be, I can imagine, to say, oh, that's just how it is, and probably not going to work out. And
it was probably just genetically not going to work.
It's really hard. Yeah. Oh, it was so good that you, I guess, found some things that you felt like could actually broaden your horizons in terms of like your potential and the possibilities and things that might be able to help you. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you pursued, in addition to acupuncture, you also pursued IVF as part of your treatment. Yeah.
So this pregnancy actually isn't an IVF pregnancy, which obviously happens. But we did, yeah, we did 2 egg collections and we did a transfer, which started to stick, but then unfortunately didn't work out. The first egg collection didn't go too well, and then the second one, we had so many follicles that I was at risk of OHSS. I think we had 48 follicles or something.
Yeah.
We still ended up with the same amount of eggs. It's so bizarre how it works.
Wow.
The main reason we did IVF was to genetically test the embryos, because people kept telling me you're probably having miscarriages because the embryos are not okay. But the transfer we had that didn't work was a genetically tested normal embryo. So that kind of showed me what I had always thought, was that there was something else going on.
Yeah.
So
and it was more, you felt more like that immune component that has something to do with endometriosis. Is that
I'm
what
sure there's so many things that were involved. Another thing I did for this pregnancy, and one other, which was genetically abnormal, it's the only one we know was abnormal, but we did a lipidiol hycosis, which I think really does help for endometriosis, because I think it helps with the implantation and maybe other things. They don't really understand why it works, to be honest, but it's definitely worth people looking into if they have endo. But yes, it's probably a combination of lots of different things that work differently this time. It was literally the month after my transfer, and I had a break where they were closed for Christmas. So I had to wait a month before my next transfer, and that's when this pregnancy happened.
Yeah, right. Great. Yeah. And so I guess balancing like what you went through, like the emotional and the kind of the physical aspect must have been really, really tough. So what sort of support systems or coping strategies did you have during this 4-year time of trying to conceive? And through that time there were miscarriages, there were setbacks, there was endometriosis, really prominent in your life. What helped you to kind of stay resilient? And
you guys were a big part of that for sure, because it was really different emotionally than seeing my Western practitioners, they just had a very different attitude about things. So I think I've probably seen everyone at your clinic at some stage. They probably all know me over the past couple of years. But everyone was everyone was just so supportive and happy to talk through everything that was happening, and took you seriously and wanted to know holistically what was happening with you. And I think emotionally that's very helpful. And the other thing I did was I did do therapy. It took me a while to get that right. I did speak to 2 psychologists who just really didn't work for me. They didn't understand how to speak about this particular topic, and kind of just made me feel worse. And then Rochelle, my acupuncturist at Gosford, recommended me a mental health nurse who was technically less qualified than the other 2, but she specialized in everything postpartum and pregnancy and loss and all that kind of stuff. And that was just game-changing for me, because she knew how to talk about these issues. I brought my partner Phil to one session, and that was really helpful for us, because we were dealing with our journey in completely different ways. So in some ways it brought us closer, because no one will ever understand what we've been through together. But then also we were grieving so differently that it was really tough. So his kind of way of dealing with things was to just dive into cleaning and keep himself busy around the house. And people would be saying to me, you're so lucky that he does all these things. But I just wanted him to sit down and spend time with me. So she kind of helped us to navigate how to make sure we were both getting what we needed, which helped a lot.
Yeah, for sure. And I think like most people can relate to fertility being really rough on a relationship, like really testing, because both of you are going through a lot. And I think when like one person in the relationship's going through something, then the other person can kind of pull their socks up, support them, and they can be that rock. But when you're both wobbly and you're both kind of moving through a lot of different emotions and processing a lot of stuff, it's really tricky to be that kind of support to each other, or it takes a lot of awareness about, you know, what you're feeling, what they're going through. So that's great that you, you know, got that help to help, then someone helped you kind of like navigate that really, really tricky kind of dance for any relationship, to be able to support each other when you're both going through some really challenging stuff.
For sure.
Yeah, especially when it's got to do with, you know, making your future together, you know, your dreams. Yeah.
Absolutely. There's just so many layers to it that of how it affects a relationship. It's really intense.
Yeah, I can imagine. And has it, your experience with sort of fertility, endometriosis, and I suppose your experience with acupuncture and IVF and things, sort of shaped your perspective on reproductive health and made you kind of like want to raise awareness about these kind of issues in the community?
Absolutely. There's so many things I think that need to change, but one of them, I just find there's so much gatekeeping of information. And to me, it's crazy that you have to go through 3 miscarriages before they consider that a recurring issue where you can start doing tests, or they can start sharing information with you about what you could try. That's obviously different to you guys. You would help someone with that from the beginning. But in Western medicine, until you've had 3, they don't even want to have a conversation with you about it.
And who wants to have 3 miscarriages?
I know. And I find that just quite cruel, to be honest. So you could be going through your second miscarriage and you could feel like this is awful, I don't ever want to experience this again. And their attitude is literally, let's just see how you go with the next one. And I just think that's so unnecessary. Why not give people the option if they want to try and do things, and they, you know, it's going to cost them money at the end of the day if they're willing to invest in that because they don't want to go through that again. I think that should be someone's choice to make.
Yeah, for sure.
And the other thing that I'm really passionate about is this culture of women silently dealing with their miscarriages. And I completely understand, you know, keeping your pregnancy quiet for the first 3 months, so you've got the option if you want to tell people if something goes wrong. But I feel like when you have a miscarriage, the expectation is there that you just kind of quietly deal with it. No one knew you were pregnant. And for me, that was really tough. I just didn't tell anyone for my first like 2.5 years of what I was going through. And that's so hard. And when I finally did come out and tell people this is what's been happening with me, so many people I knew had been through their own journeys, and it would have helped me so much if I had known. And I get it. It's not easy to talk about, and not everyone will want to talk about it. But if we make it kind of more culturally normal, I think more people would, and it wouldn't feel so alone and so scary when it happens to you.
Yeah, for sure. And I think I think what you're saying, you know, speaking about miscarriage is just one of those things where unfortunately a lot of people are going to have experienced it, but that shared experience can be kind of healing, because it must be such a painful experience.
Yeah, I get so many messages from people saying, thank goodness I knew that you had one, because I wouldn't have known who to talk to. And people just want someone to talk to. It's actually worse, I think, when people try and solve your problems when you're going through a miscarriage. You don't want someone to cheer you up or try to fix it. And so just having someone that you can just talk to about your feelings is so important.
Yeah. It's a huge loss. Yeah. Okay. I feel like we've covered a lot. But yeah, it's so good to kind of get an idea about how everything was kind of navigated for you. And I guess a sense of the kind of the journey in terms of you having to go through quite a lot of miscarriages, a laparoscopy, and having to just kind of keep showing up when things weren't working out. And finally kind of finding something that sort of seemed to help, and it all kind of came together.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess you've kind of mentioned a couple of things that you'd really like to kind of pass on to people, I guess. But I guess if someone's sort of starting out looking at trying to conceive and they have endometriosis or any kind of complex fertility stuff, I guess what would be your, without being like your advice being kind of specific, like go to this practitioner or anything like that, but what would be like your kind of like general advice for them in terms of like their outlook or to, you know, best kind of equip themselves to go on this journey the easiest way possible, if that's possible.
I think the biggest advice I would give is to try and let go of control as much as you can. I'm very much someone who, in my life, I can make things happen if I want it to happen. I am career driven and, you know, I chase after my dreams and all that kind of thing. And then my fertility journey just really stopped me in my tracks because I couldn't just make that happen. So much of that was outside of my control. And I feel like I kept trying so hard to make it happen that might have even worked against me. And you don't have control over this.
And do you think it was that idea that you could do it on your own, that you had to let go of, that you had to kind of broaden your support? Or
I think you really do just have to try. Don't ever tell someone on a fertility journey to relax. That's one tip I'll give people. But without telling anyone to relax, you have to find a way of just allowing things to follow their timeline and unfold in the way that they're going to unfold. And I would do all these like maths games in my head of like, if I can do this, maybe I can be pregnant by this Christmas and all this kind of stuff, just really trying to control the whole thing too much. And it's just not going to work out the way it is in your head. So if you can kind of let go of expectations and just take your journey one day at a time and not try and think too much ahead or control the situation too much, let people help you. That's probably going to be a much better journey for you mentally. And I don't know, maybe it will also affect your physical result as well.
Yeah, that's nice advice. I like that. Just also, just trying to stay present, because I think fertility is often like people feel like they're in limbo. They're trying to, they're on a journey and they want to get to the destination. Of course, that limbo feeling can be really uncomfortable. It makes you, some people just want to fast, just what you're talking about. Fast, I want to get there. I just want to like, you know, laser focus. But if they can be present, you know, maybe that's easier. Yeah.
Whether you're doing IVF or trying naturally, I think everyone gets trapped in that, trying to like fit it into the time of when they thought it would happen. And that's probably the most difficult thing, I think. Like, when is my next transfer going to be? Tell me now, because I want to know. And like, that's how I was for sure.
Yeah, pretty understandable. We all want to like just wrap it up nice and neat container. Like,
let's get this done. I'm tired of this.
That'll suit me really well. Like, we'll just do that. Yeah,
I'm ready. Let's do this. But it just doesn't. It doesn't care about what you want.
And I think the longer you go on, the more you kind of like, well, I deserve it now. You know, I've been gone through all this stuff. Like, come on, like now I want it to be like this. I think that voice can get stronger and stronger as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but it's, I guess everyone out there who's been on a fertility journey will, I think, be relating to a lot of the things that you've said around mindset, around loss, around kind of finding sort of support, And yeah, it's been great to kind of hear about your journey. And I'd love to also speak a little bit about Cozy, which has been your brainchild, which has come out of all of this as well. I think a lot of people out there would love to hear about it.
Perfect. So obviously having endometriosis, my period pain is really, really bad. And I just found I really struggled with heat packs that were out there because my pain would radiate throughout my whole torso, through my back, down my legs. And I just felt like I needed more heat coverage to try and help with the pain. So I would heat up multiple heat packs, and then I would try and lay really still and balance them in the right spots to try and get the pain. And because the heat packs would kind of all sit in one spot, then I would get these burn marks on my stomach, and it would be really uncomfortable where I was bloated. And so I was just really frustrated. And so I got a secondhand sewing machine, and I taught myself to sew in my lounge room, and I started creating versions.
Is this a COVID project?
No, post-COVID.
Oh, okay.
My versions of Cozy that I made were so bad. Every time I would walk around the house, bits of rice would be falling out, and my partner would get so frustrated because I'm not a very good sewer. But basically I created a heat pack that's 360 degrees, and it wraps around your whole torso, so you're fully encased in the nice warmth, and it velcros on so that it's hands-free, and you can kind of roll around in bed, or you can go wash your dishes and do what you need to do while it's kind of helping with that relief that you need.
Great. And it's so it's kind of like a Velcro-y thing. You just kind of wrap around, and you can still put it in the microwave.
Yeah, you just microwave it for 2 minutes, and then just strap it on and do whatever you want to do, whether you want to lounge around, or if you're feeling well enough to get up and do a few things, you can do that. You can wear it under your clothes. No one would know. So like I always had heat packs in the office with me. Anyone who's watching who's worked with me will know I was famous for my heat packs in the office. And I would leave them lying around everywhere. They always smelled like burnt popcorn. And people
heat pack on the chair.
Yeah, people would be like, what is that smell? And I'd burnt my old corn heat packs again. But you can just wear this under your clothes, and no one would even know that you're wearing it at work, which is great.
Oh, cool. Yeah, well, it looks great. And
thank you.
Yeah, we'll share a link on to Cozy for those people who are interested in checking it out. Because I think it's a great invention. Like, why did people not think of this earlier? So
thank you. I know it seems really obvious once it exists, but it was really hard to come up with it in the first place.
Yeah. Well, I think now it's out there. Yeah. Watch out.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for speaking with us today. It's been wonderful to hear your journey, and thank you for all your open honesty. And being kind of vulnerable and sharing so much with us today. I think the people out there who are struggling really love hearing your story. Thank you.
No worries. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. All right, we'll leave it there for today, but thanks so much. We'll see you soon.
You.
Yes. Bye.